You staged this to scam us, didn't you? James Carter's furious voice cut through the chaos at Wilmington's Cape Fear Riverwalk as his twin sons clung to Amara Davis's soaked uniform, trembling and crying against her shoulder. You threw my boys into that river for attention. I know you're kind, always looking for a payout. Gasps erupted from the crowd, phones raised, live streams rolling, whispers spreading fast. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, tell us where you're watching from, subscribe to the channel, and give this video a like, because what happens next will leave you speechless. It began on a humid August afternoon. The boardwalk buzzed with music, laughter, and the salty scent of seafood when Amara, a 27-year-old waitress at Coastal Haven Eatery, noticed two boys chasing a red balloon along the railing. One misstep, one slip, and both vanished over the edge into the swirling river below. Without a thought, Amara dropped her tray, stripped off her apron, and dove headfirst into the cold, merciless current. The water pulled hard, dragging her under, but the boys' frantic cries drove her forward. She reached Liam first, locking her arm around his chest, then lunged for Noah, whose head dipped dangerously beneath the surface. Malik Jones, a local fisherman nearby, waded in waist-deep, shouting for her to push them toward him. Together, they hauled the boys back to safety, Amara collapsing onto the planks, chest heaving, whispering soft reassurances as the crowd cheered, until James Carter stormed forward, panic twisting into rage. "What did you do to my kids?" he yelled, pulling Noah into his arms. "Dad, she saved us," Liam cried, clutching Amara's sleeve, but James didn't listen. He saw her damp braids, her soaked uniform, and decided instantly she wasn't a hero, she was a threat. "You think I don't know this scam? First chaos, then lawsuits. I've seen it all before." Amara froze, disbelief flashing in her eyes, until Victoria Langston, James's business partner, stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply. "James, we should call security," she said coldly. "She probably staged this. People like her see opportunity wherever they can." Before Amara could respond, Tessa Brooks, her co-worker and closest friend, shoved through the crowd. "That's a lie, and you know it," she shouted, planting herself between Amara and Victoria. "There are cameras everywhere. Check the footage before you ruin someone's life." Victoria smirked, folding her arms. "Or maybe the footage will mysteriously disappear. These things happen." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, suspicion blooming, phones rising higher. Some voices defended Amara, others doubted her, their judgments loud enough to sting. Amara took a shaky breath and steadied her voice. "I didn't do this. I saved them. Ask Malik. Ask anyone here." Malik stepped forward immediately, his tone firm. "She jumped before anyone else even moved," he said, pointing toward the river. "Didn't hesitate for a second." But James's glare stayed sharp. "You expect me to believe a waitress risked her life for nothing? People don't do that unless there's something in it for them." The words cut deep, dragging up memories Amara tried to bury, every glance, every whisper, every time someone had treated her like she didn't belong. Tessa grabbed Amara's hand, whispering fiercely, "Don't say another word. We'll prove the truth." At that moment, a security guard arrived, summoned by Victoria, his radio crackling. Tessa turned to James, voice loud and steady. "Do you want the truth, or do you just want someone to blame? Check the cameras." James hesitated, his jaw tightening, but Victoria leaned in, her voice smooth and poisonous. "James, don't let her manipulate you. This is exactly how lawsuits start." Then Liam's small, trembling voice broke the tension. "Dad, she saved us. We slipped. It wasn't her fault." Noah nodded quickly, clutching his brother's hand. The crowd fell silent, innocence cutting sharper than any accusation. For the briefest moment, guilt flickered behind James's expression, but pride kept him rigid. He faced Amara, his voice low, hard. "If this is a setup, you'll regret it. Amara didn't flinch. Her clothes clung to her skin, chilled to the bone, but her voice stayed calm, steady. I'd do it again, she said softly, yet loud enough for everyone to hear. Whether you believe me or not. The crowd stilled, phones hovering midair, the roar of the river beneath them the only sound. Then someone called out, check the footage. Another echoed, then another, until the chant rose, check the footage. Check the footage. James finally turned toward Coastal Haven, where security cameras lined the walls, capturing every angle of the boardwalk. Victoria whispered sharply in his ear, but her words were drowned by the crowd's demand. With a curt nod, James ordered the guard, pull the footage. Now. Relief washed through Amara's chest, but unease stayed rooted deep. Even with proof, she knew how fast reputations could shatter online. One viral clip, one twisted headline, and everything she had worked for could vanish overnight. She thought of Caleb, her 16-year-old brother at home, still battling panic attacks since their mother's death, and her stomach knotted tighter. She couldn't lose her job. She couldn't lose their home. As the guard disappeared inside, the crowd began to thin, though phones stayed raised, live stream still running. Tessa squeezed Amara's hand and murmured, we'll fight this. We have the truth. Amara nodded faintly, but her gaze caught Victoria standing by the railing, her perfect smile brittle, her eyes sharp with quiet malice. Victoria wasn't finished. Amara could see it, feel it. This wasn't over. Standing drenched on the edge of the Cape Fear River, Amara understood one thing with absolute clarity: saving those boys had changed her life forever. But the storm was only beginning. Whispers traveled faster than the wind, and by the next morning, Amara Davis's name was everywhere, but not for the reason she deserved. Instead of being praised as a hero for saving the Carter twins, her face appeared under headlines twisting the story into a calculated scam. Victoria Langston had moved quickly, feeding a distorted version of events to local blogs and pushing it across X, where hashtags like #RiverWalkScam trended within hours. At Coastal Haven Eatery, where Amara worked double shifts to keep a roof over her and her brother's heads, the air felt heavy with stares and murmurs. Tables once filled with friendly regulars now hosted customers whispering behind menus, debating whether she had risked her life out of compassion, or greed. Tessa Brooks, her loyal coworker, shoved a tray onto the counter, fuming. I swear, if I hear one more person say you staged that, I'm going to lose it, she muttered, keeping her voice low so the manager wouldn't overhear. Amara forced a small smile, but it didn't reach her tired eyes. Let them talk. I know the truth, she said softly, though her voice lacked conviction. Inside, every cruel headline chipped away at her resolve. Victoria's smear campaign didn't stop there. By noon, a manipulated clip from a bystander's video surfaced online, cut to make it look like Amara reached for the boys after Malik pulled them out, implying she exaggerated her role to gain sympathy. The video gained thousands of shares in less than an hour. James Carter's silence didn't help. He hadn't released a statement, hadn't corrected the narrative, and Victoria used his absence to her advantage, giving an interview to a local reporter outside Carter Realty. We're cooperating fully with authorities, she said smoothly, her tone dripping with false concern. We can't rule out the possibility that this was staged. Our priority is the boys' safety. Those words, repeated endlessly across social media, left Amara drowning in doubt and anger she couldn't afford to express. By late afternoon, the tension boiled over at Coastal Haven. A group of women at Table 9 stared openly, one of them pulling up the viral clip on her phone. That's her, she whispered loudly enough for Amara to hear. I read she hired someone to film it. Amara kept walking, balancing a tray with practiced grace, but her fingers trembled as she set down their drinks. Enjoy your iced teas, she said quietly, turning away before the tears threatened to spill. Behind her, the whispers continued. Later that evening, Amara retreated to her small Wilmington apartment, where her 16-year-old brother Caleb sat cross-legged on the couch, sketchbook in his lap. He looked up instantly, reading her exhaustion before she could hide it. "I saw what they're saying online," he said softly, biting his lip. "I know it's lies." He turned the sketchbook around, revealing a drawing of her, cape flowing, leaping into the river, twin boys clutched tightly in her arms. Across the top, in bold letters, he'd written, "My hero." The breath caught in Amara's throat as she knelt beside him, hugging him tightly. "You're the only person I care about proving right," she whispered into his curls, her voice cracking. Caleb hugged her back, whispering, "You already did." That single moment anchored her when the weight of public opinion threatened to drag her under. The next day, Elena Ruiz, a retired teacher and longtime Coastal Haven regular, arrived at the restaurant with a determined expression and a tablet in hand. "I've been following this nonsense," Elena said, sliding into a corner booth near Amara's station. "I've seen every video, every rumor, and I'm not having it. We're setting the record straight." Amara blinked, confused. "How?" Elena grinned knowingly. "I've been in this town 30 years. Trust me, I know who talks and who listens. We're going to make people listen." She explained her plan to rally local patrons, business owners, and even students she once taught to defend Amara online, countering Victoria's lies with eyewitness accounts and first-hand stories. Tessa quickly jumped on board, recording a video from her phone outside the restaurant where she recounted the entire rescue in detail. Malik added his own testimony later that evening, a simple clip filmed by the river where he declared firmly, "Amara saved those boys. I saw it with my own eyes." End of story. By that night, their posts began circulating, gaining slow but steady traction under the hashtag #CapeFearHero. Dozens of locals who had witnessed the rescue started sharing their perspectives. Some uploaded unedited videos showing the exact moment Amara dove into the water before Malik even reached the edge, clearing her of the staged rescue accusation entirely. Still, Victoria wasn't finished. The following morning, a statement from Carter Realty accused Amara of reckless endangerment, claiming her actions caused unnecessary trauma to the boys and disrupted the boardwalk's safety. James Carter's name sat at the bottom of the document, though Tessa suspected, and Amara knew in her gut, that Victoria had drafted it herself. Hurt burned deep, but Amara refused to back down. She met with Tessa, Malik, and Elena at Elena's kitchen table that night, poring over footage, screenshots, and every hateful comment Victoria had planted online. "She's trying to ruin me," Amara said, her voice shaking for the first time since the rescue. "And she's winning." Malik leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Not if we get the right proof," he said firmly. "Security footage doesn't lie. The problem was getting access to it. Coastal Haven's cameras had captured everything, but the restaurant's manager, Mr. Ellis, had been hesitant to get involved, fearing backlash from powerful clients like James. That's when Tessa marched straight into his office the next morning. "This isn't just about Amara," she argued fiercely. "It's about the truth. You know what really happened." Mr. Ellis hesitated, tugging at his tie. "You're asking me to go against one of the most influential men in Wilmington," he said quietly. "You think Carter Realty won't retaliate?" Tessa didn't blink. "I think doing the right thing matters more than protecting the powerful." After a long pause, Ellis sighed heavily, sliding a USB drive across the desk. "This never came from me." The footage was damning, not for Amara, but for Victoria. It clearly showed the boys chasing their balloon, the slip, and Amara diving without hesitation, disproving every accusation Victoria had made. But it also captured something else. Seconds after Amara pulled the twins from the river, Victoria whispering into James's ear, her expression tight and calculated, pointing directly at Amara before security even arrived. Tessa smiled grimly. "Looks like our queen has been busy." With the footage secured, Elena suggested taking it directly to the community first instead of the media. "Let the people see before Victoria spins it," she said, and everyone agreed. That afternoon, they uploaded the full, unedited video under the hashtag #SeeTheTruth, tagging local journalists, schools, and city forums. Almost instantly, the narrative began shifting. Comments flooded in beneath the video. She jumped in without thinking. Hero. Unbelievable how fast people judged her. Victoria Langston owes this woman an apology. Still, James Carter remained silent, which kept the controversy alive. Without his acknowledgement, doubts lingered. That night, Amara sat by her apartment window, looking out over the dimly lit streets of Wilmington, Caleb asleep on the couch behind her. The city buzzed with noise she couldn't escape, online debates, news alerts, endless voices arguing about her life. For the first time, she let herself cry, silent tears sliding down her face. But beneath the ache, determination hardened like steel. She wasn't just fighting for her name anymore. She was fighting for Caleb's stability, for the truth, and for every quiet hero dismissed because of prejudice and power. The next morning, Coastal Haven's front door swung open, and reporters crowded the sidewalk, microphones ready. "Amara, do you have a response to Carter Realty's statement?" one asked. "Do you plan to sue James Carter?" another shouted. Amara kept her head high, Tessa gripping her elbow supportively as they walked past. "No comment," she said calmly, her voice steady despite the storm raging around her. Inside, Malik and Elena were already at a corner booth, finalizing plans for a town hall where the community could confront the lies directly. "If James won't speak, we will," Elena said firmly, tapping the USB drive on the table. Victoria had thrown everything she had at destroying Amara's reputation, but for the first time, Amara wasn't just surviving. She was fighting back. And as the sun set over Wilmington that evening, painting the Cape Fear River in gold, Amara stood on the boardwalk where it all began, gripping the railing tightly. The same spot where she dove into the water, the same spot where everything changed. Behind her, the city murmured with speculation, judgment, and doubt. But ahead, for the first time since the rescue, she saw something she hadn't felt in days: hope. James Carter stood at the center of Coastal Haven Eatery, the usually lively restaurant silent except for the soft hum of the ceiling fans, and for the first time since the rescue, his proud, carefully built image began to crack. In front of him, dozens of locals, reporters, and restaurant patrons stared expectantly, their phones raised, recording every moment. Amara Davis sat at a corner table with Tessa Brooks, Malik Jones, and Elena Ruiz by her side, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles pale. The unedited security footage had been circulating for 24 hours, showing the truth in undeniable clarity: the balloon floating away, the twins slipping, Amara diving into the river before anyone else moved, and Malik waiting in moments later to help her pull them out. The video had spread fast under #SeeTheTruth, earning thousands of shares and finally turning public opinion in Amara's favor. Still, the silence from James had allowed speculation to linger, and tonight's community meeting was his first chance to speak. He shifted on his feet, his gaze briefly landing on Amara before he cleared his throat, voice tight but steady. "I owe this community an apology," he began, his words deliberate, his tone heavier than anyone had ever heard from the wealthy real estate developer. "And I owe this woman," he paused, gesturing toward Amara, "my deepest gratitude." Gasps and murmurs rippled across the room. Amara blinked, unsure if she'd heard him correctly, her chest tightening as James continued. "I said terrible things that day at the river walk," he admitted, his voice quieter now, though it carried in the stillness. "I let fear, anger, and my own prejudices blind me. Instead of thanking the woman who risked her life to save my sons, I accused her of something vile." He hesitated, taking a slow breath, his hand trembling slightly as he placed it over his chest. "That was wrong. I was wrong." For a moment, Amara simply stared, unsure how to respond. Part of her wanted to believe him, but another part remembered every headline, every whisper, every sleepless night replaying his accusations. Tessa squeezed her hand under the table, grounding her as James spoke again, his tone firming with resolve. My sons, Liam and Noah, told me the truth from the start, but I refused to listen, he admitted, turning toward the twins seated in the front row beside a family friend. I let pride get in the way of the people who matter most. Liam smiled faintly, clutching his brother's hand, and Noah whispered something in his ear that made them both giggle softly despite the weight in the room. Victoria Langston sat a few rows back, her arms crossed, lips pressed tight, her carefully composed expression cracking just slightly. For days, she'd been the architect behind the smear campaign against Amara, fueling headlines and twisting James's silence into perceived agreement. Now, as James's words directly contradicted her narrative, her sharp gaze shifted restlessly from one recording phone to another. James turned back to the crowd. I've spoken with my sons, and I've seen the footage. There is no doubt about what happened that day, he said, his voice strengthening. Amara didn't just save Liam and Noah. She saved me too, from losing them. He paused, lowering his head briefly before looking back at her. And yet I allowed my fear and prejudice to make her life harder when she had already risked everything. A hush settled as James's next words echoed louder than the rest. I can't undo the harm I caused, but I can take responsibility. That's why, starting today, I'm funding the Cape Fear Futures program, a scholarship initiative in Amara's name to support local youth who dream big but lack the opportunities they deserve. The announcement rippled through the room, drawing murmurs of surprise and scattered applause. Amara's brows knitted in shock, her lips parting slightly, but she said nothing yet, absorbing his words as if they carried too much weight to process all at once. Victoria immediately stood, her heels clicking against the hardwood as she raised her voice sharply. James, this is reckless, she exclaimed, stepping into the aisle. Do you have any idea how this makes us look? You're throwing money at a stranger to cover up her manipulations. This woman staged this entire, enough. James's voice thundered through the hall, silencing her mid-sentence. For a man known for his composure, the outburst startled everyone. I've seen the proof, Victoria, he said, each word clipped and controlled. You manipulated me. You manipulated the press. And you tried to destroy an innocent woman's reputation to protect your own power. Gasps rose again, phones capturing every second as Victoria's composure faltered, her face pale beneath the bright lights. Amara watched the confrontation silently, her heart pounding as if the room itself had stopped breathing. Tessa muttered under her breath, about time, and Malik crossed his arms with a satisfied smirk. Elena, however, leaned forward, sensing the brewing storm. James ignored Victoria's protests and turned back toward Amara, his tone softening. I know an apology isn't enough, he said, his voice heavy with sincerity. But I want to work with you to make something good come from all of this. The Cape Fear Futures program will provide scholarships to kids across Wilmington who need support, kids like Caleb, he added, glancing toward Amara's brother seated nervously near the aisle, his sketchbook balanced on his knees. Caleb's wide eyes met Amara's, and she reached out instinctively, squeezing his hand. Amara cleared her throat softly, standing for the first time, every eye in the room locking onto her. I didn't jump into that river expecting anything in return, she said, her voice steady though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. I did it because 2 little boys were in danger, and I couldn't stand by and watch. She paused, glancing toward James, then toward the crowd. What happened afterward, the lies, the headlines, the judgment, it hurt more than I can explain. But this isn't just about me anymore. It's about us, about what kind of community we want to be. The silence that followed carried weight, the audience hanging on her every word. Elena wiped at her eyes subtly, Tessa beamed proudly, and Malik nodded, his jaw clenched with restrained emotion. Even some of the doubters in the crowd, those who had whispered accusations only days earlier, lowered their heads slightly, shame settling where judgment once lived. Then, from the front row, Liam's small voice broke the stillness. Can we thank her now, Dad? Noah followed quickly, nodding eagerly. She saved us. A ripple of soft laughter and applause spread through the room as the twins scrambled up to hug Amara tightly. For the first time since the rescue, she allowed herself to smile fully, her arms wrapping around them instinctively. But the moment of peace didn't last. As the applause grew louder, Victoria slipped out the back of the room, her expression tight, her phone already pressed to her ear. Amara caught the movement and knew instantly this wasn't over. Victoria had lost control of the narrative tonight, but she wouldn't disappear quietly. After the meeting ended, Amara stepped outside into the warm Wilmington night, the hum of the Riverwalk carrying faintly in the distance. James approached cautiously, stopping a few feet away. "I can't expect forgiveness," he said quietly, his gaze steady but humbled. "But I do hope we can build something meaningful from this." Amara studied him for a long moment before replying softly, "I don't know if I can forgive you yet. But helping this community is a start." As James nodded and walked away, Caleb slipped his hand into hers, leaning against her side. "You're changing things," he whispered. Amara looked out over the city skyline, the lights reflecting against the Cape Fear River, and for the first time since that chaotic afternoon, she felt something different stirring inside her, not just relief, but purpose. That night, as she returned home, the notifications on her phone flooded in. Supportive messages, offers from local schools, journalists requesting interviews, and most importantly, students from across Wilmington already asking how to apply for the Cape Fear Futures scholarships. Amara smiled faintly, exhaustion pulling at her body, but her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. Still, she knew the fight wasn't over. Victoria Langston wouldn't back down without a battle, and Amara sensed storms ahead. But for the first time, she had something Victoria didn't: the truth, the community, and the growing belief that one act of courage could change more than just her life. It could change everything. The launch of the Cape Fear Futures program drew the entire city to Wilmington's Thalian Hall. Students clutched applications, parents whispered hopeful prayers, and reporters filled the aisles. Amara Davis stood near the stage, her palms damp despite Tessa Brooks's comforting squeeze. This was supposed to be a celebration, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that Victoria Langston was planning something, and she was right. 2 nights earlier, forged documents suddenly appeared online, falsely claiming Amara had been paid $25,000 by Carter Realty to stage the river rescue. Fake emails suggested she plotted everything to humiliate James Carter and profit from donations. The hashtag scam scholarship exploded overnight, threatening to derail the entire program. Tessa wanted to confront Victoria directly, but Malik Jones stopped her. "That's what she wants," he warned calmly. "We fight with proof, not anger." Amara found strength where she least expected it, her late mother's journal, tucked beneath Caleb's bed. In its worn pages, she read, "One day, Amara will change lives. I don't know how, but I believe it." The words steadied her, reminding her why she had started this fight. With Elena Ruiz's help, a counter-campaign launched under hashtag Cape Fear Heroes, where parents, students, and eyewitnesses posted videos defending Amara and sharing how the scholarships could change their futures. Within 48 hours, the hashtag overtook Victoria's narrative, and over 600 applications poured in. On the day of the launch, James Carter opened the ceremony with a steady voice. "This isn't about me," he said, glancing toward Amara. "It's about second chances and investing in every young person's dream." Applause thundered, but Victoria sat in the back, her sharp smile unbroken, her phone in hand. When Amara took the stage, she spoke simply. "I'm not here because of what I did that day," she said softly. "I'm here because we rise higher when we lift each other. That's what Cape Fear Futures is about." The room erupted in cheers, but moments later, Elena rushed over with alarming news. "Victoria just released another video," she whispered. On screen, Amara saw a heavily edited clip implying she was secretly profiting from the program. Within minutes, angry comments flooded in. Tessa cursed under her breath, but Malik stayed calm. "We don't run from this," he said. We face it. That evening, the team gathered at Elena's home to strategize. Tracing the source of the forged records, they discovered Victoria had hired a private PR firm to manufacture the smear campaign. Amara clenched her fists, but Caleb quietly slipped her a new sketch, her holding a lantern over the river, lighting the way forward. "You don't have to fight alone," he whispered. The next morning, Amara and James stood together at a press conference on the Cape Fear River Walk, the same place where everything began. "Lies have spread," Amara said firmly, holding up a USB drive containing unedited footage and proof of Victoria's falsifications. "Here's the truth." James added, "Carter Realty will fund a full audit to guarantee transparency." Their unified stance shifted the tide instantly. Local news outlets led with headlines clearing Amara's name, and Victoria's PR firm cut ties within hours. That evening, Thalian Hall glowed during a scholarship vigil. Accepted students took turns sharing their dreams. Alicia spoke of becoming a marine biologist. Marcus vowed to be the first in his family to attend college. Hundreds of lanterns floated along the Cape Fear River, each carrying a wish for the future. Amara stood at the back, tears streaming silently as Caleb whispered, "You did this." She smiled softly and replied, "We did this." But as the lanterns drifted downstream, Amara spotted Victoria standing on the far river walk, her cold, knowing smile unbroken. The battle for Wilmington's future wasn't over, but for the first time, Amara felt ready. 1 year later, Wilmington's Thalian Hall glowed beneath soft lantern light as the Cape Fear Futures program celebrated its first anniversary. More than 300 students had received scholarships, and tonight, Amara Davis stood backstage, heart pounding as the crowd waited for her. In the front row, Caleb clutched his sketchbook tightly. He was one of this year's recipients, and pride shone in his eyes. James Carter opened the ceremony, his voice warm and steady. "A year ago, we were divided by fear and lies," he said, scanning the audience. "But one woman's courage reminded us what community means." He gestured toward Amara, and the hall erupted in applause. When she took the stage, Amara paused, letting the quiet settle before speaking. "I didn't save 2 boys that day for recognition," she said softly, her voice carrying across the room. "I did it because no one deserves to be left behind. This program exists because we rise higher when we lift each other." Her words drew a standing ovation, but just as she stepped away from the podium, a cold voice rang out. "Higher? Or just higher for you?" The crowd turned as Victoria Langston strode into the hall, her heels echoing sharply against the marble floor. Murmurs rippled through the audience as she raised her voice. "I warned you. This program is unsustainable and manipulates donors with emotion, not accountability." Amara stepped forward, steady and calm. "You forged documents, spread lies, and tried to destroy everything we built. But the truth outlasted you, Victoria." James rose from his seat, his voice firm. "Enough. We've completed 2 independent audits. Every dollar is accounted for. Your fight is over." Cameras flashed as Victoria froze under the weight of his words. Without replying, she turned sharply and walked out. The hall erupted in cheers, and Amara exhaled deeply, knowing this battle was finally behind her. The ceremony continued as students shared their dreams. Alicia spoke of becoming a marine biologist. Marcus announced his acceptance into an engineering program. Then Caleb walked up, clutching his sketchbook, his voice trembling at first but growing steady. "My sister saved 2 boys that day," he said, looking straight at Amara. "But she saved me too. She believed in me when I couldn't. And now, because of her and this program, I can go to art school." Applause thundered through the hall as Amara wiped away tears, hugging him tightly when he stepped down. Later that evening, the celebration moved to the Cape Fear River Walk, where hundreds of lanterns floated gently across the water, each carrying a handwritten wish from a student. Amara stood quietly by the railing, Tessa and Malik beside her, Elena offering a warm mug of tea. Caleb slipped his sketchbook into her hands, a drawing of glowing lanterns above the river, with the words still blooming across the page. Amara smiled softly, whispering, "That's exactly what we are." James approached, his tone sincere. "I can't undo the past, but I can do better from here on," he said. Amara nodded, replying calmly, "Then do better, for them, for this community." He smiled faintly and walked back toward his family, leaving Amara surrounded by the people who never left her side. As lanterns drifted downstream, their golden reflections dancing on the river's surface, Amara looked up at the star-filled sky. The scholarship program had grown beyond her, beyond James, beyond the rescue that started it all. It belonged to Wilmington now, to the students, the families, the future they were building together. For the first time since that day by the river, Amara felt truly free. She had found her purpose, her strength, and her place in a community that had learned to choose hope over fear. Thank you so much for watching this story until the end. If Amara's journey inspired you, please let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like so more people can discover these powerful stories. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us continue sharing messages of courage, hope, and redemption.